Hello, everyone. I am Ray Saldana, the National President and CEO of Communities in Schools. And I'm excited today to announce a new series that we're calling Community Chats. And Community Chats is a media series focused on highlighting the plight of students in America, and especially now in a different kind of feeling and environment. And so the new series hosted by yours truly will feature a one-on-one interviews with thought leaders within the CIS network and abroad. And just to orient you, I am coming in live from my office here in San Antonio. And yes, I specifically put a sports coat on just for today's live conversation of our first community chat. And this is the door that if my one-year-old who is also potty training walks through, this will be the door that he walks through. So look alive. Well, I want to sort of orient about what it is that we're going to be talking about today. And as many of you all know, COVID-19 is affecting us all in many ways. And more than ever, students are facing increased challenges. By the way, I live near an Air Force base. So if you hear planes coming back and forth, that's what it is. But again, students are facing increased challenges that is really in gaining access to education. And our priority is to make sure that our students are safe and have access to education and the resources to remain successful during this pandemic, during this crisis. And as many of the folks who are working on the front lines at Communities in Schools know, crisis is not new to our organization. So as a national organization, we provide wraparound service supports for students in 26 states and the District of Columbia in urban, rural, and suburban America. And so we're doing as much as we can to keep supporting students, even when school buildings are closed. That does not mean that the work of community schools stops. So today, I'm actually joined by Tiffany Miller, who is the Vice President of Policy at Communities in Schools, for a brief chat about our role at the national office in supporting affiliates as they tend to the needs of students and their families during this pandemic. So please give me a virtual welcome, or provide a virtual welcome to Tiffany Miller. Tiffany, are you there?
I am. Hi, Ray. How are you?
Hi, Tiffany. I'm doing good. Thank you for joining us. So glad that you could make some time. Did you, I think this is kind of good that we both get to dress up like we're normal human beings going into the office every single day.
I know it was quite the change. I actually put a little bit of makeup on and stuffed it up just a little bit. I'm very excited to be the first guest.
Yeah, your first guest on Community Chat. And so with that, because we've got about 15 minutes, we know people's time is precious. So I'm going to jump right into some questions about policy, about communities in schools. And so the first question for either affiliates who are listening in or the general public is what does advocacy mean for communities in schools? And in the wake of a pandemic, in what ways has the national office supported our local affiliates?
Sure. So advocacy at the national office means a couple of different things. The biggest thing that it means is that I and my team, that we're advocates for our affiliates and we're advocates for the 1.6 million students that we serve. So everything that we do, we have our affiliates and our kids in mind. It means coming up with a policy agenda that we think will allow our affiliates to serve more students. As we know, before the pandemic, the need was pretty great. And during the pandemic, the need has only grown. And we know it will continue to grow the longer we're in this period. So what we've been doing is we've been spending a lot of time advocating for funding, increased funding and education and different programs that we know our affiliates rely on in order to serve students. So we've been working with our friends on the Hill, our supporters on the Hill, to just keep us in mind for every single stimulus package. And we will continue to do that. We've provided some webinars and some tools for the network. Actually, I was just on a call that the Department of Education was hosting about an hour ago, the Secretary of Education announced that she is releasing the state education emergency stabilization funds. So our affiliates have been, I know, waiting to find out when that money would begin to be distributed to their school districts, and states are now in a position where they can start applying. That application process has just opened as of maybe an hour ago.
Gotcha. And I think for folks who are sort of new to CIS and new to communities and schools, they get to sort of see what policy looks like on 3 different levels. There's the local levels where our affiliates are, the state level, of course, where we're operating, and then the federal level, which in each organization, each affiliate handles it a different way. So we're grateful to have you thinking through what happens at the federal level that gets passed down. So second question here is, as we know, this is a challenging time for nonprofits, not just communities and schools, but that work with schools to serve the most vulnerable children and their families. So what more do you think can be done by Congress to help nonprofits who support the schools and students? And to sort of ask that question a different way, thinking about the work of nonprofits, how doubly important it's going to be after this pandemic, thinking about if I were talking to President Miller or Majority Leader Miller or Senator Miller, what kind of magic wand would you put together for CIS or for national nonprofits in this moment, thinking about what's ahead?
Absolutely. Thinking about I'll answer the question in 2 parts. Thinking about our network and communities and schools first, or other organizations that do similar work to CIS, I would say that we really need to think about having a site coordinator in every single Title I school in this country. It was imperative before, it's imperative now. What we know is that we had a large number of students living in poverty. And what we know, what's happened during this pandemic, is that we had millions of families living on the brink. And just missing one paycheck has now pushed them into poverty. And so we know that the needs of our students and families have grown. And we know that post-pandemic, the need is still going to be there, and it's going to be growing and growing. And so we need to ensure that schools, whether it's operating in the building or outside the building, have contact with a site coordinator who can help coordinate services for the students and their families, making sure that they have that stable adult relationship in their life to help them with any sort of social emotional support, mental health supports, food, basic needs, anything that they need in order to help get them through this and, to continue on with their academics.
I mean, that's the kind of sort of bold positions that I think that CIS and advocacy is going to have to look like. And to borrow your phrase, having a site coordinator in every Title I school in America is a vision that shouldn't seem bold, because before the pandemic, I think it was thought to be a sort of nice to have if we had somebody who was advocating on behalf of a young person outside of school, whether that was food insecurity, social emotional support. A lot of things that we thought were nice to have put us in this position now where there's this huge access gap, equity gap, where we know the students that are being hit the hardest by this. And so I hope that Congress will listen to you in thinking about how it is we respond to this. So now, if I'm an affiliate, this third question here is, how can affiliates and communities advocate for students during this time?
Sure. So a couple of different things. Follow our Facebook page and be on the lookout for advocacy action alerts and updates from communities and schools. We will be activating all of our constituents and our affiliates to make sure that they're reaching out to their elected officials here in DC or across the country, but also talk to your elected officials at the state and local level. With respect to the funds that have been recently distributed, those are how that money is going to be distributed is all based on local decision making. And so our affiliates in particular need to talk about the work that they're doing, and probably more importantly, the work that has had to stop. and the impact that that's having on students and families because they don't have enough funding, or because they're not operating in schools. And so, or because the need has increased. So making sure that you're communicating with your school district leaders, your governors, your state education agencies in particular.
Just to double down on that, Tiffany, thank you for recognizing what needs to be this call to action. And we're going to have a few calls to action where we'll make it easy for folks about what the issue is, what we're asking for, and who to contact. But remember, the responsibility that I think is on our shoulders here is that we at Communities in Schools, whether you're an affiliate or you work with students every single day in a different capacity, you have a responsibility to be a voice for a community that has always traditionally been underserved but ignored in ways. And what we don't want to happen is to see those voices and those community members get ignored at a moment where people are talking about coming in and bailing out industries or bailing out businesses. We need to ensure that there is sort of a bailout opportunity for the youngest people in our community who are this next generation, who without advocates, without a voice, can go by the wayside to be ignored, just like they have been in the past. And so we don't want to go back to that normal. When folks say, let's go back to normal, we need to go back to a different and better version of that. So we all have a role in advocacy and communicating to those leaders about decisions that they make now that's going to have an impact further down the road. So doubling down on that message. Thanks, Tiffany. The fourth question here is, in what ways could the current education stimulus, that money that has gone through, affect the funding of nonprofits who serve underprivileged youth?
Well, the current funding that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago that was just released is around $13 billion. That's going to go. That's going to be divided across the country based on some federal funding formulas. And then from there, it's going to be distributed down to school districts. So those funds can be used for all of the work that we do. It can be used for social emotional learning. It could be used for everything that's already allowable within the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. And in ESSA, our work, our model is an allowable use of funds. But that what I want to stress is actually what you just said, is that we can't go back to what was considered normal before. And to be perfectly honest, the $13 billion is really only a drop in the budget when you're seeing how these states and districts their economies and budgets are going to be hit by the pandemic crisis. And so at the very least, I would like to see Congress match the funds that they distributed to education in 2008, 2009, right after the Great Recession. We really need to think about investing in education in the same way that we're thinking about investing in other sectors of our economy.
Yeah, it's important for us all to put it in context. I mean, we are dealing with something that is unprecedented, and we talk about sort of business that may fail or economy that may struggle, but the stories behind what that means, to just talk about the economy or talk about industry, are the families that we serve who are connected to those industries in some way, but they will be the ones that are hardest hit when unemployment numbers go up. I mean, we serve the most at risk, and some of those communities, the hardest to serve cities and rural communities all across the country. And I think it really just speaks to something you mentioned, which is before the pandemic, when we looked at statistics, 1 in 6 children were dealing with poverty. We know that number, if we can make a prediction, is going to go up, and we need to meet that demand and we need to meet that need with organizations like Communities in Schools. And so for affiliates who are advocating for their fair share of what was known as the CARES Act, which was the first, I think, stimulus package that was passed, please correct me if I'm wrong, but how do they go about advocating for that money that has already been allocated through the CARES Act?
Sure. So we released a advocacy toolkit for our affiliates, which is available on our National Resource Center. They should go there, look for the toolkit. We have talking points, we have sample letters, we have sample tweets that they may want to consider, but most importantly, just getting out there, starting to collect stories as well. I can't stress that enough, that what I'm hearing, at least from elected officials at the federal level, is they need to know why you need this money. So you really need to talk about the work that you're doing and the work that you can no longer do, or talk about how the need has grown and really have some of that evidence and that data-driven argument to back up these asks, because it's a drop in the bucket. So it's going to be pretty difficult to get these funds, and we certainly have a compelling story to tell.
Well, there is a lot that we could talk about, especially because in my role as CEO, I've now had the opportunity to communicate with a lot of executive directors and site coordinators who are telling me how desperate the situation is right now for families that are unemployed and the effect it's having on their children and the environment at home. And I hope that we get into that in another community chats. But for breaking through our first community chats, Tiffany, I want to say thank you for joining us today. We
Thank you.
appreciate your insights. And for those who are tuning in, please visit our website at communitiesandschools.org for more information about today's policy conversation. And join us again on May 21st for our second community chat. More details on the topic and guests to come. And maybe by then we'll actually reveal whether we're wearing shoes during this interview or not. I told you I was wearing a sports coat, and Tiffany, we're getting dressed up, but who knows? Am I wearing shoes? Was this globe here before we started this? I don't know. I want to thank my son for not walking through the door behind me. And with that, I want folks to have a great day, try to be safe. And remember, we have a responsibility in this moment to meet it. And it truly means to be a voice for the voiceless and those communities that we serve. So I hope you'll continue to rise up, continue to tune in, and again, be safe and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.